Today we're gonna go over how I fixed my lipids on TRT. But as always, this is not medical advice that should not be used to treat or diagnose medical conditions. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Let me give you a little bit of background. So I'll tell you my history with cholesterol. I'll tell you about what I'm currently taking in my HRT regimen. Now, the important thing about this video is this is not a debate on how much lipids actually matter, okay? I understand there's arguments on both sides, and I've read a lot of the literature on both sides, both the great cholesterol myth, a lot of Paul Saladino. I've read these carnivore guys, people that think cholesterol don't matter. And then I've read like vegans and people that think cholesterol really do matter. I understand there's an argument to be had on both sides on how much lipids matter in terms of heart attacks, heart disease, all that stuff. But for me personally, since it is a debatable topic, I want to keep my lipids looking primo because I don't see any issues with actually having good lipids. It's just how much do bad lipids actually matter. So again, since it's debatable, I want my lipids to look very good. Now, my history with my cholesterol. I have had high cholesterol since I was a teenager. I remember, I think I was 17 or 16. As a young doctor I went to, I was trying to establish a relationship with a PCP, or my family was, and more or less he was asking, hey, like, what's your family history? And my grandmother has high lipids. Now she's 85, no heart disease or anything like that. But he more or less said, hey, let's keep an eye on this. Let's do your first test. So at 17, my cholesterol was like 260. LDL pretty high. He said it was something to be monitored. And throughout my 20s, I've had my cholesterol get to 300 total cholesterol. Now, I was able to fix that without statins. And again, this is before TRT. I was a teenager when I first started having issues with my lipids, dyslipidemia. I was able to have a major dietary intervention, and that basically helped my lipids look really, really good. And that had to do with high amounts of fiber and no longer following a meat-based or more of a carnivore diet or a ketogenic diet. When I started introducing a lot of soluble fiber, my lipids actually looked quite good. Now, since I started TRT, my lipids have gotten worse. Full disclosure, not everybody suffers from this. In fact, there's some guys that their lipids actually look a lot better as they start to lose fat and they start to actually feel good and exercise. But for me personally, my LDL started creeping up and up and up. And we're gonna go over the history of my lipids throughout this video, but it's something I've struggled with. Now, a couple other things. This is my protocol. Currently, I am on 120 milligrams of test sip per week. I spread that out into 3 doses. So I do 0.2 mLs of a 200 milligram per milliliter vial 3 times per week, so 120 milligrams total. I've also introduced HCG several months back because I want to try to reestablish fertility because my wife and I want to conceive again and then have another kid. Obviously, family for me is the most important. If I can't reestablish good fertility parameters, I'm just going to come off of TRT temporarily, but that's a different video. Since I've introduced HCG, I scoured the internet looking for good peer-reviewed clinical research that showed men already on TRT, so already had an established TRT protocol, when they introduce HCG, how it impacts lipids. And I can't find good evidence to suggest that it dramatically improves your lipids, but I'll show you that I was able to do that through some supplemental intervention, which we're gonna talk all about. But understand that I've also introduced HCG. That's a spurious variable, but again, I can't find good data to suggest that that's what heavily moved the needle on my lipids. If you have good peer-reviewed clinical evidence, let me know down below. Now that we have all of that out of the way, let's actually look at how my lipids have changed since starting TRT. And we'll also look at how my lipids changed when I introduced Anavar, because I did take Anavar. I'll link that video at the end. But looking at the history of my lipids here. So pulling this up, we're gonna take a look. This first section, 9/26/2024. You can see that total cholesterol actually looked pretty good. This is when my testosterone was actually higher. So I was taking 180 milligrams per week. It kind of threw me off the charts. So I dropped it from there, but you can see total cholesterol 184, that's good parameters. HDL cholesterol actually did come down a little bit. Before I started TRT, it was in the 70s. Triglycerides look good. LDL cholesterol just started to creep up just a little bit. We were 103, which is just slightly out of the optimal range. You can see the actual ratio looks pretty good too. Now, I dropped my testosterone back to 150 milligrams per week, and you can see my lipids actually got a little bit worse in some ways. So my HDL cholesterol did start to come back, but my LDL cholesterol continued to climb up. Now, that's problematic because you would expect if the testosterone is heavily influencing the LDL, less testosterone to make the LDL better. Now, it did improve the HDL, but the LDL actually started to get worse. Now, the last one on this sheet is when I was taking 150 test plus 25 milligrams of Anavar a day. That Anavar more or less cut my HDL in half. That should be no surprise to anybody. I understand Anavar is a mild anabolic, but if you actually take it and it's legitimate, don't be surprised if you see your HDL go down. So total cholesterol looked better, but that was largely because my HDL looked worse and my LDL just barely crept up to 127. Now, take a look at the most recent lipid panel I had, and we'll go over all my most recent blood work, but the primary purpose of this video is to look at my lipids. So you can see on 120 milligrams per week, which you might think, okay, well, that's what's influencing the LDL. But I'll show you that it probably isn't because my testosterone is higher than it's ever been since introducing HCG. Total cholesterol 190, HDL at 74, trigs at 79, LDL at 99, and the ratios look great. So this, to me, I feel very comfortable with this blood work. And I'm gonna tell you exactly what I did. But before we do that, I wanna show you my testosterone, my estradiol, and a couple other things. So my total testosterone, this is LC-MS-MS, liquid chromatography tandem mass spec. I called up this lab to make sure that it was LC-MS-MS, and it is. You can see my total testosterone is higher than it's ever been. So it's at 1640, pretty far out of range, about 50% higher than the top end. Estradiol is also not quite double the top of the reference range. I have no estradiol, no estrogenic side effects, but you can actually see that my testosterone is higher. So if the testosterone level is what's influencing the LDL, then we should expect it to be worse. Again, because my testosterone is actually higher than when I was doing the Anavar and the 150 a week. Now, the reason my testosterone is higher is because of the HCG. So HCG basically will tell your testicles to make more of its own testosterone and hopefully sperm as well. We're gonna see that in a later video. But my testosterone is higher than it's ever been. But when we actually break it down, free testosterone is at the top of the reference range, but still within range. Bioavailable, same thing. SHBG is almost too high, and albumin is looking pretty good too. Hematology looks great. I'm not dealing with any erythrocytosis, hematocrit, hemoglobin, all looks good. Now let's get into what I actually did. So when I was trying to figure out how can I fix my lipids, I was talking to one of my nurse practitioners who works for me. She said, hey, there's actually a lot of good research for a supplement called Red Yeast Rice. So what I did is I actually did some research on my own, and I found this. We're not gonna go over absolutely everything in this research paper, although I think you should read it. It makes a compelling case. The title is Red Yeast Rice for the Improvement of Lipid Profiles in Mild to Moderate Hypercholesterolemia, a Narrative Review. So just going over the abstract, reducing low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, LDLC, levels is a key target for lowering cardiovascular risk and preventing atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. I understand that some people think that doesn't matter, but read this research paper. It actually does a pretty compelling case, arguing for the fact that LDL does contribute to ASCVD. Red yeast rice is a nutraceutical widely used as a lipid-lowering dietary supplement. The main cholesterol-lowering component of RYR, red yeast rice, are monocolins, particularly monocolin K, which is structurally identical to lovastatin. So a statin is a medication that a lot of people will take to reduce their LDL cholesterol and targets the same key enzyme of cholesterol biosynthesis. RYR supplementation reduces LDL-C levels by approximately 15 to 34% versus placebo, with a similar effect to low-dose first-generation statins in subjects with mild to moderate dyslipidemia. That was me. I had mild dyslipidemia. RYR has also demonstrated beneficial reductions of up to 45% versus placebo in the risk of ASCVD events in secondary prevention studies. So that's people that already have issues with their heart. Basically, red yeast rice can help reduce an additional cardiovascular event. RYR at a dose that provides about 3 milligrams per D, I don't know what that is well tolerated. So I can go over all of this, but we're not gonna do that. That wouldn't be the best use of time. But understand that I read over this entire research paper and I said to myself, let's give it a shot. So what I took is, let me grab it real quick, this supplement right here. It's Thorne Red Yeast Rice plus CoQ10. So the implementation of CoQ10 is to hopefully reduce any potential side effects from things like statins, and this operates like a statin. So for me, it says take 1 capsule a day, 600 milligrams of red yeast rice and 15 milligrams of coenzyme Q10. Me personally, I took double that. So I doubled this dose. I took 1,200 milligrams of red yeast rice and 30 milligrams of coenzyme Q10, and I have 0 side effects. No leg pain, no brain fog, nothing. I actually feel no different taking this supplement. I am not sponsored by this company. These people are a little more expensive. I don't sell this stuff, but I wanted to really do something that I trusted, and reading about Thorne, it seems like a good supplement brand. Again, I don't sell it. I have no affiliation. This is just what I use. I'm sure you can probably get it cheaper somewhere else, but this is just for me. So I did that, and we can see that my cholesterol actually looks much, much better. So all of that being said, I still believe that my global risk, even before I started the red yeast rice, was probably pretty low. I have a healthy weight. I run 30 miles a week. I lift several days a week, 4 or 5, depending. And more or less, I don't feel like this was detrimental in any way. Maybe a little bit to my wallet, again, because I think this was like 50 bucks or something like that. I don't know, I bought it on Amazon, but this helped me pretty dramatically. So if you're somebody that is dealing with dyslipidemia and you're on TRT, I'm not gonna say this is gonna work for you. I'm just saying what worked for me. So do me a favor. If you've learned anything in this video, like the video. If you're interested in content like this, don't forget to subscribe. If you're interested in becoming a patient, if you want the white glove approach to TRT, HRT, go on my website, Steele Health and Hormone Center, center spelled re.com. Fill out a contact form. We will be in touch within 24 hours. Again, guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.